In this video, I want to talk about WizardMaxxing. And just the simple fact that for some of you, if you're like me, the esoteric path is really the only way, assuming you want to be fulfilled. And, to expand upon the point of esotericism, I really want to communicate that Etsy witches are not the only ones who can harness this power, But as a dude, you'll probably have to do it differently than they do it. There's nothing wrong with that. I'll expand on that later, though, and that'll probably become its own series, to be honest, because there's a lot to talk about there. But basically, for this video, I just want to talk about how, for the average dude who's likely to find my videos, you probably aren't really made for the warrior barbarian path in life. I think it was somebody. I'll link the video below, but there's a guy who does a really good video about how life is like an RPG, and you have all these classes, and they, maybe the warrior isn't like the modern example, really. Like, it's sort of the old timey example, but we like to think of things in these fun ways. So that's sort of the metaphor that I'm going with for this. And you're probably not meant for the warrior build if you found these videos. You're probably more of like a wizard or a sage or a rogue or a ranger or a druid or something else. You're more of the thinking type, the innovating type. You're probably looking for things. You're probably intellectualizing a lot of the stuff in your life. And if you go and take a nail gun all day for 8 hours a day, and you blast the nail gun into a piece of wood, and that's your job, you're probably not going to be intellectually fulfilled. It's probably not really what your build is for. And this goes like both for your mind, but also for your body. Like, maybe you are a bigger dude, whoever's listening to this, and that's fine. Maybe you do have the physical build for it, but maybe your mind is probably, I don't want to say too advanced, because then that sort of like is looking down upon these blue collar types. There's nothing wrong with being of that mindset, but like, their mind might be like a Ford Ranger, and your mind might be more like, I don't know, a sports car. You know what I mean? Like, you got different builds of the mind and of the body. But also, likewise, if you're a tiny little dude with a scrawny little frame, you probably shouldn't go and try to become a linebacker on the football team or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, that's probably, people wouldn't be confused at me for saying that. It's just not your build. You gotta play to your strengths. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what this channel is a lot about, is helping people to try to like find, what is your passion, but also what is your build gonna allow for realistically. I mean, you should do whatever you want, really, but like, if you don't have the build for it, you're only gonna make it so far. And the thing is if you go down that blue collar route, like a lot of these people right now, they're telling us, you wanted to be a computer scientist? Well, that's not viable anymore, because we replaced everybody with outsourcing from Bangladesh or something like that. And so you can't do that anymore. You need to go and become an electrician. Forget the degree you just went and got. Forget the degrees that you spent 4 years studying for. Forget the fact that you were really good at math in high school. You need to work on a construction site as a heavy equipment operator. You need to do that now, because, the billionaire class really needs you to put up these buildings, and that's what you're here for, all right? No, fuck that. Fuck that shit. The truth is, in my opinion at least, that path is only going to lead to you becoming a doomer. If you're like any kind of a high IQ autist, neurodivergent person or whatever, your mind doesn't work normally, and you really, you were pretty much bound to become esoteric and queer and strange and have niche interests that you max out on, that you go and get a PhD in some absurdly obscure topic. Otherwise, you're never going to be intellectually fulfilled. You're never going to max out the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You might have your base needs fulfilled by being a plumber or something. You'll get a roof over your head. You'll get enough, but you're not going to satisfy those other things that way. But for the average neurodivergent person, like I said, the esotericism maxing, the wizard maxing, impractical hobbies, getting into Magic the Gathering or Warhammer or some shit, playing StarCraft, Dark Souls, whatever, that was really the only way that was ever viable for you. And these people are trying to tell you otherwise. That you need to go into these trades that you were just never built for. I mean, maybe you are. Maybe the person who found this video is the exact kind of person who needs to do that. Or maybe you have like a specific type of autism that makes you want to become the best plumber in the world. Fine. That's perfect. Maybe that is your niche interest. But for the overwhelming majority of types of people who will find these videos and have these niche internet interests, you got to find your thing, and it's probably not going to be working as a heavy equipment operator, but maybe it is. I don't know. My main point is that the normies will lead you astray. If you're a normie, then follow the normies by all means. But if you're one of us, if you're from the internet, if you spent an unhealthy amount of time on Discord, the normies are probably not going down the path that you want to go down. And the truth is that the flock of sheep will often just get led over a fucking cliff, by whoever's leading them. And you probably don't want to follow that kind of person. If you found this video, you're probably all too aware that people in power don't always have our best interests in mind, And the other thing is that the whole blue collar culture, I don't want to make this like a video that's just ragging on blue collar, but because there's nothing wrong about being blue collar, but the culture is very like kind of, macho, toxic masculinity. They will get mad at you for asking questions. And if you're autistic, you're probably going to ask a lot of questions because you're going to want to know why everything works and shit. They're just going to be like, shut the fuck up, get in line, go hammer nails into the piece of wood or whatever, Yeah, they'll get mad at you for asking questions in your apprenticeship. Gen X alcoholic tradesmen are notoriously difficult to get along with, and they're difficult to learn from. So, truth is, most of you got to be WizardMaxxing out here, and I'll expand on what that means a little bit. The idea of a wizard as a modern day class is probably laughable to a lot of people. Yeah, it has a lot to do with like maybe spiritual esotericism and stuff, and I will expand on that kind of shit in future videos, but it also is like you're more of the intellectual class. You like to get good at stuff. So a modern day wizard or whatever might be like an engineer or a coder or whatever. And a lot of these types of careers are unfortunately being encroached upon by overseas imported labor, or they're being encroached upon by artificial intelligence. The billionaire class wants nothing more than to weaken our upper middle class as much as possible. And because we don't have unions in white collar fields and strong professional organizations that protect the professions from getting encroached upon, by someone who just uh, went to a boot camp or something. We don't have protections against that kind of oversaturation. Um, it's really easy for these rich people to just cheapen your labor against your will. You didn't get a vote on it. They have the control and they're going to cheapen your labor. So we have to find alternate routes. And unfortunately, if you're anything like me, then this really was the only path that was ever viable for you. But they're cheapening it. So it's like, what do? You kind of just have to push through and innovate on whatever that is. You have to become the wizard. You have to intellectualize and find new ways forward against whatever they're trying to do to us. So that's my take on all this. I will expand on some of this stuff in future videos, but yeah, that's the idea behind WizardMaxxing. Anyway, till next time.